Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to Fronteras, A Changing America. I'm Monica Ortiz-Uribe. Vado, New Mexico is one of the communities, one of the many communities between Las Cruces and El Paso that most of us simply zoom by when we're driving through I-10. People who live in those communities work in the local dairies, in construction, in restaurants, and schools, but the communities in which they live sometimes lack basic infrastructure like roads and water. Today, my guests are part of a grassroots efforts to help improve conditions in those communities, and that's what we're going to talk about on today's show. I'd like to welcome today Johana, Bencomo, and Teresa Zamora. Welcome, ladies, to the show.
Thank you.
Why don't we start by you introducing yourselves and tell us what you do. Okay. Yeah, we can start with Johana.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Johana Bencomo. I'm a community organizer with Nuevo Mexico Café, Comunidades en Acción y de Fe. I've been with Café for about a little over a year now. We're multi-faith, multi-racial, like you said, grassroots organization here in Las Cruces that work across the county. I primarily organize in the community of Vado. And yeah, recently we've been organizing around issues of infrastructure.
Very good. And Teresa.
Hello, Monica. My name is Teresa Zamora, and I'm a resident of Vado. I work there at a local school, and I'm here thanks to Johana. I just heard that she's been out for a year in Café. Well, I'm very fortunate because I've been involved with her like for the past 10 months. So, and I'm here to let you know about my community.
So how long have you lived in Vado?
I live like 28 years in Vado. No, I'm lying. It's about 24 years, yeah.
24 years in Vado,
yes.
Okay. And did you live somewhere else before that?
Yes, I used to live in Anthony, New Mexico, and I was practically raised in Mesquite, so it's just right next to Vado.
Yeah, so all around the same area.
The same area.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, why don't you ladies tell me a bit about Vado? How long has it been a community, and who lives there, and what do people do?
Well, I would like to say Vado is like any other community. We're the same citizens, the same people. We work at schools, like you say. We work at dairy stores. And it's just part of the county. It's part of our state. And it's a very pretty community, as a matter of fact. All we need is paved roads.
So you said something that there are no paved roads.
Well, there's some, but that's why we have been fighting for all the roads, or at least the most used roads to be paved. That's our struggle.
So,
right
and
now.
how many people live in Vado?
It's about 4,000 people.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's quite a bit. And do you all know each other?
Well, maybe not all of us, but a big chunk of people we do know. I work at the local school, so I know quite a few people and a lot of the children, and that's one of the main reasons. Our citizens, our children, they need basic needs, which is paved roads.
So tell me, what is it about the paved roads that's so important versus a dirt road? What's wrong with the dirt road?
Well, you see, like I said, I lived there for a lot of years, and I was just mentioning to Johana, we have lived here for so long, and we have been dealing with unpaved roads. How is it? What difference does it make? Well, let me tell you, it affects our economy, our health, our education. How? Well, health. There's been deaths there because there's been accidents. Well, not mostly health related to health, because people get sick and ambulances are not able to go fast enough, or they're not even able to find the addresses of where people live, and that's major tragedies.
So maybe when I think of a dirt road, sometimes I think of a dirt road that's nice and even and kind of cleaned out. This doesn't sound like the kind of unpaved roads that you have if an ambulance is having trouble.
There's a lot of clay in the valley, and so often dirt roads aren't just dirt, right? They're mixed with all these other materials that when it rains, rains have long-lasting effects on roads where they are absolutely not plain. Most of them are definitely very bumpy, and like I said, during monsoon season here in our state, some of these become like small little ponds, essentially. A lot of communities within Vado, often, like a lot of neighborhoods, often only have one way in or out of communities. So if one road is completely flooded with water, communities are literally stuck
in there. And does that mean you need a special kind of car? Like, what sorts of cars do people drive?
Well, you see, yeah, we'll need jeeps or tractors, but most of us don't have them, and you know that also affects our financial situation because we have to be constantly repairing our cars.
What sorts of damage?
Well, mostly to our tires, you know.
Yeah, tires aren't cheap.
Yes, no. Yeah. And then there's other kinds of oil spills because of the bombs, you know, how the road hits on the bottom of the car. I mean,
I see.
It's major repairs. It's not just you get flat tires. No, you have damage to the body.
So you've had trouble, just the residents getting in and out. You've had trouble getting emergency services
of course.
in. What happens? I imagine there's some consequences because of that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there's been deaths already.
There's been
I think this is beyond just like an inconvenience. Like an unpaved road to some may seem trivial and like it's inconvenient. Roads, cars need fixing every once in a while, but it's gone beyond that. Last December, in fact, one of the leaders that we work with in the community of Vado, her husband had a heart attack and the ambulance wasn't able to get to her house. In fact, they couldn't even find the road where she lived. Her neighbor had to drive to the ambulance and the sheriff to guide them back to the house. And you know, their testimony is quite sad because their 14-year-old daughter says, I don't want this to happen to any other kids in this community. And so, like I said, it's no longer a matter of inconvenience anymore.
It's a basic need.
Was the ambulance able to get there on time?
No,
unfortunately,
he passed away.
He passed away before the ambulance could arrive. Yeah, no. So that's pretty serious. Are there that's as serious as it gets.
That's right.
Are there other examples of consequences because of the conditions of the roads?
In school I see a lot of absences, especially during our rain season, because the parents are not able to drive the kids to the school, and buses that will definitely not go pick them up.
Right.
So there's a lot of absences in school, and you know what? And my students feel bad sometimes because they get to school all full of mud, and it's embarrassing for them. So it's beyond like you said, it's a basic need. We need infrastructure on our roads.
So let's talk about why this community does not have paved roads.
Yeah. So Vado, like many other communities in our county, in Johana County, I believe there's 34 federally designated colonias in our county.
And if you can explain for those that don't know what is a colonia.
So a colonia is a federally designated community that is unincorporated, which means that this certain community doesn't necessarily have their own governing body, that they are governed by their county. It also lacks major infrastructure, some pretty basic infrastructure like that it is saying. Colonias are often also within 100 miles of the US-Mexico border. So colonia communities exist all throughout Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. Vado, for example, you asked earlier how long has it been a community, and we think years and years and years, but not really. I think the majority of Vado was created in like the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even the 90s.
And how was it created?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Particularly in our state. So a lot of things were happening in this time, 60s, 70s, 80s. The border was experiencing a pretty huge economic growth, which meant that people were moving here. So it also experienced a pretty sudden and significant population growth. With that, people were moving here from within the United States, but also south of the border. So with
Mexico.
that, from Mexico, right? With the devaluation of the peso, we saw a huge wave of migration into the United States. And a lot of folks settled here because of the type of work that was available. Unfortunately, our area, our region was not ready for that. So there was not a lot of affordable housing. Developers took advantage of that, took advantage of poor migrant communities and families that were just looking for work and looking for a place to live. So they began buying these lots of land that weren't really quite fertile land, right? Like we live in the desert.
And who's buying these lots?
So I don't know of any specific names. I would love to know more names, but they were just developers. A lot of what I hear is a lot of people from Texas, from El Paso. There is one notorious developer that came out of Texas. His name was Cecil McDonald, who was the sole creator of many colonia communities that now are experiencing similar things, like in Vado and in Teresa's situation.
And so how did the land go from the developers to the people who live there now?
So these developers bought these parcels of land for very cheap and then turned around and sold them to community members with the guarantee that maybe one day this would be a vibrant community, that of course you would get services, that of course you would get paved roads and gas and water, all while county and state governments didn't really know that this was happening, or maybe they did, right?
That people were living in
that people were buying these illegal
on
subdivisions, and that's often what we hear. It's, well, you live in an illegal subdivision, but that's not at the fault of the resident. That's at the fault of the developer who sold land.
So technically, they were not supposed to.
Well, so
sell.
New Mexico.
Are there laws?
Yeah, so New Mexico. People say there was lax regulation. I don't believe there was any regulation protecting families who were wanting to buy properties, property owners. So there was no regulation that said these developers were not able to do this. So in turn, they sold plots of land, divided them in four, maybe divided them in four again. And so that's why you see conditions where people are like trailers and trailers stacked within a very small portion of land, because developers took advantage of folks not necessarily knowing, and there not really being any regulation. Regulation came about in the late 90s, but at this point, communities were completely developed and parcels of land were sold already.
And when you say developed, what was there if the basic infrastructure wasn't?
Just homes.
It was home. So Teresa, how did your family come about your home and come about to live in Vado? And have you seen changes since you first moved there in what's available?
Yes. How I came to live there was through my brother. He wanted. That's exactly. I'm listening to Johana, and it's making me feel like mad, because now they say you live at this place where that it's illegal. So we're not to blame. When we bought that property, nobody told us that this is a legal subdivision. They say, and my brother said, you see, they're selling me this lot, it's cheap, and it's big, let's buy it. And to tell the truth, at the beginning, I didn't want to, because I looked at it, and it wasn't as, there was not a lot of people there. So I said, no, it's kind of deserted. Yeah. He said, but it's really cheap, and then, you see, they'll give it to us with a low down payment and payment. So I say, okay. So I moved there, and then I learned, yes, the roads were terrible, and it has been improvements. We have been working to improve our living conditions.
The people who live there, your family,
yes,
and your neighbors.
When I first lived there,
out of your own pocket.
Yes,
okay.
It was impossible for us to travel through the roads. I mean, like she said, there was a lot of clay, and cars would get stuck, and I mean, it was terrible. So everybody pitched money, and we put dirt, and we made our road very wide and nice, and it has improved, but not all of the roads. Like where I live, it's not in such a bad condition. And you see, I'm telling Johana, I have lived there for so long, and I never realized, I have always complained about it, and I never realized that I could do something about it. I was just like, yeah, we'll complain, our roads are bad, this is it. But we were like dormant. We just have to deal with that. But now I know that we can expect something better from our commissioners and from our government representatives. And I say, why not? I mean, why not? We're, like you say, who's Vado? We're the same kind of people like anybody else, or the people that live in Cruces and El Paso, everywhere. Yeah. Why not? If those lots were sold illegally, that's not our fault. If somebody's to blame, it's the people that developers that sold them and the government representatives that did not do anything about it, because they cannot say that they didn't know. How come they say that we're not there when we're paying taxes since the first day that we started living there?
I see.
They cannot say, oh, we didn't know this was going on.
So you're taxed.
Yes.
For
And we have to ask for permits to move in. We have to ask for permits for electricity, water. I mean, we're there. They know if we're so illegal as they say. So why did they give us permit to move in? Why did they give us permit to put the electricity? Why are they charging us sewer? You see, we're not illegal. If that was the case back then, well, I'm sorry, but that's not our fault.
So going back to that, your brother's purchase. Was this your brother? You said.
Yes.
How long ago was that? Do you remember how
Yes,
much?
yes.
The
It's like
plot
I say,
was?
since I've been living there. I've been living there like for 24 years. So this is back like 30 years ago because I didn't move there right away.
How much did you get charged for to buy the?
Oh, it was $1,000 down, and it was $360 a month, which is pretty good. And then it was between me and my brother.
Where
so
were you before?
I was living in Anthony, New Mexico.
In an apartment or?
I had a mobile home. I was renting a place.
And this was a better option.
Well,
because-
like I said, the first I didn't like the idea, but then I had to drive every day back and forth from Anthony to Vado because my mom would take care of my kids. And then I was paying rent for my lot over there where I had my mobile home park. And I say, well, why am I paying rent if I'm paying this? I have this piece of land, which was huge. And I say, well, I finally just moved back here. And you see, like I tell Johana, I like Vado. It's not an ugly community. I mean, you have these beautiful views of the mountains. I love the fields, when they're green. I live right in front of a field. And people are nice. All we need is that improvement. It's a basic need. And you know what? There's been a lot of improvements, yes. Now, like we have sewer. We have.
You didn't have that before,
no.
sewer. So when you went to flush the toilet, what would happen?
Well, we
Septic
have
tanks.
septic tanks.
Which a pretty significant population of Vado still have septic tanks.
But you see, it's because some people don't know how to progress, I guess, because some people resist. Even now, some people say, well, why do we want this? Why do we want to live better?
Yeah.
And of course, we want our kids to have better opportunities to have a more pretty community.
So what has been the response among the elected officials, among the county, to the needs of your communities?
So often what we hear is that, well, these are private roads. And because of the way these lots were sold, they became privatized, right? So all these roads are not county roads. And in New Mexico, we have an anti-donation clause that says public funds cannot be used for private use. So really, it's to protect from corruption, right? So certain representative isn't giving money to cousin Joe for improvements on his lot. So these roads, that's what we keep hearing, is that they're private roads. They're private roads. We cannot give you money. We cannot use county funds to improve your roads. Just even with the septic tank, same thing, right? We can't use public funds to help you get hooked up to a sewage line. So you must continue living in sewage. And then of course there's also there's no money, even if there was a way that there's no money.
Yeah, there's not money in the county's budget to be able to make these improvements, even if the law made it easy to do.
That's right.
So what do you do then?
Well, we know, I resist the idea that there's no money. Our state, we have capital outlay funds that could be used for improvement projects around our state, and especially in our county, that we should really be taking advantage of and prioritizing communities that for far too long have been ignored.
Does the money go somewhere? Do you see money going somewhere
I think
else
there's millions of unused dollars of capital outlay.
That don't get used, that
Yeah.
are sitting there. This is what you're saying.
That's right.
Okay.
And I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, yeah. So if the funds exist and whether or not they're being applied to communities, and if not, then if you know why, if you've made attempts to start a conversation with the county about
About 10 years ago, actually, so many community members were finally standing up saying, like, look, there's just got to be a better way. Like, there's no money, and their private roads can't be the only, so that can't be it. So 10 years ago, community members started really talking to county commissioners back then about this issue. And county commissioners back then drafted and decided to adopt Resolution 0522, which allowed for community members in colonias that lived on private roads to deed over a portion of their road, their property, to the county. Through a very lengthy and complex process, of course. Everyone on the road had to agree, every single property owner had to say yes, and then they would deed over that portion of their road to the county for it to become a county road, which then the county could maintain and upgrade and pave the road.
They could use
even.
public funds.
That's right.
Because they were now
That's right.
owners of, okay, but you have to get everyone, if you have 5 people living on along the same street, those 5 people have to agree to deed over a chunk of their land.
That's right.
To the counties, so
That's
they
right.
can.
That's right.
And has that strategy worked?
Yeah, so several roads did get paved under that strategy. In 2013, however, the county commissioners that were sitting on the commission then decided that it was too time consuming, it was too expensive. And so they suspended the resolution, leaving only private maintenance as an option. So they pretty much said, you can handle it yourself, residents.
I see. So that sounds like that. That puts the burden back on.
That's right.
on you
The
who live
owners.
in Vado.
right.
So what have you done since that resolution? Since that county resolution has been suspended? I understand the EPA comes
That's
into
right.
play at
That's
some
right.
point.
So for the last several months, for the last about 10 months, we've been organizing the community of Vado specifically. Would love to start expanding to more colonia communities. But specifically right now, we've been organizing folks in Vado. And through that this past January, we had a huge community meeting with Commissioner Billy Garrett, who is the representative for Vado, and Commissioner Wayne Hancock, who's now the chair. And they came and hosted a community meeting in Vado at the community center, and we turned out tons of people. We turned out over 160 people to the meeting, and community members. So the purpose of the meeting, I think, was for commissioners to kind of tell us, essentially, I think they were going to tell us there's no money, there's no process. Instead, what community members did, they took over the agenda, and we had testimonies of, for example, Tere Hidalgo, the woman who lost her husband in December, several kids who've had asthma attacks.
Because of the dirt.
Because of the dirt, and also during their asthma attack, parents don't know, well, I can either risk driving fast on this road to get him the services he needs and risk breaking down, or I can call an ambulance and risk them never getting here.
Right, that's a tough spot.
So
what became of this meeting?
Yeah, so the EPA, a representative of a regional EPA was present at the meeting, and afterwards she contacted Café and said, hey, I think we have a pilot project we'd like to talk to you about. And sure enough, we met with the EPA and a representative of HUD as well, Housing and Urban Development, and they said, we have this pilot project to improve environmental justice in New Mexico, and they will be a private company out of El Paso has tons and tons of recycled asphalt shingle material that can be used to pave roads. And of course, it's a temporary solution, but it's a solution that I think we're very excited about.
And so the EPA is kicking in some funds. You found this company in El Paso who's they're donating this material.
Yeah.
And so what's left? This all sounds like good news. What's left to do now?
So the EPA, I just want to clarify, is not providing any funds. They just provided the connection between the community and the company that's donating.
Oh, okay.
In fact, they asked the community to pay, so the material would be donated. All we had to cover was the cost of transporting the material from El Paso to Vado, as well as community members would have to provide. Well, they'd have to do their own labor, but then also like the machinery and everything necessary. And so
that's also still on
Yes.
community members.
That's that's right. And so last week, if I may, during the Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders rally, which was held in Vado, we decided to take advantage of the rally, and we were able to raise a little over $1,000 for selling waters and burritos for the project.
So that will enable you to start
That's right.
paving roads. I see. Okay. Well, before we go, is there any way that if people are interested in supporting your effort or in learning more, what can they do if they'd like to get involved?
So go for it.
I would like to add in this, like she has mentioned, we're getting this material, but that's only temporary, and it's not to pave roads, just to cover the dirt. So what I would like to ask to all the community members of all the colonia, not just Vado, everybody to get involved, because what we need is to that all 522 to be reinstituted, to make it legal again for county to be able to take over private roads, that they call them, because we need a law that will support us to go ask for help from the county. And like I say, why did they get away with it? Because these commissioners thought it was expensive and time consuming. What happened to the commissioners that thought it was a priority to help us?
So you're saying that people can express, can voice their concern over this and reach out to their county commissioners, possibly reach out to Café.
Yes, absolutely. They
Okay.
can reach out to Café, they can go to our website at organizenm.org, where they can call us, and my contact info is on the website as well, so they can reach me specifically. But even a bigger ask for community members across Johana County would be to call their commissioner and tell them that they've met someone from Vado and have heard their story, and that they would like our commission to support and to make communities like Vado and the families of Vado a priority.
Very good. Well, thank you, ladies, for coming on the show and talking to us. This has been Fronteras, A Changing America. I'm Monica Ortiz-Uribe.